What's up, everybody? This is Jackhammer 2711 coming at you with yet another video review. And today we're going to be taking a quick look at the Masters of the Universe Classics Rio Blast action figure. Rio Blast was originally available in September as the Mattel Collector Club Eternia monthly figure. For the month of September. He was available initially on Articulation.com on September the 15th. Of course, in early access for the subscribers a few days before that. Rio Blast is currently still available on Articulation.com. As of this review, I'll have a link down in the description of the video if you want to go check out Articulation.com and see just exactly what's going on over there. Make an attempt at getting Rio Blast. Rio Blast, of course, comes in the traditional Masters Universe Classics brown mailer package. Of course, the Masters Universe Classics logo up top. The name of the figure here, Rio Blast. And, of course, down here at the bottom, you see the Adult Collector and Mattel logo down there at the bottom. Taking a look at the back of the packaging. Rio Blast comes packaged with all of this Mattel randomness legal stuff on the back, and when you get the package opened and remove the figure, this is what you find. You find Rio Blast in packaging. Of course, this is the standard Masters of the Universe Classics packaging. The green brick, yellow card back, Masters Universe packaging. Taking a look at the figure a little bit more in package. As you see, Rio Blast sits in there. Of course, you got the nice Masters Universe Classics logo at the top. And then Rio Blast, Heroic Transforming Gunslinger, down there at the bottom. You see his name. Of course, right here above my thumb, it says it is for an adult collector. Bottom of the packaging has that same similar Mattel Collector legal disclaimer stuff that comes on all Masters of the Universe Classics figures. Taking a look at the back of the packaging, here's Rio Blast's bio. Apparently his real name is Riolus Blast, so they went with the fact that Rio Blast is just basically his real name. I can't say that bothers me. I take no issue with that at all whatsoever. I'm totally fine with that name. Riolus, however, I'd have just went with let's make his name Rio Blast. I mean, really, I don't get that. But anyway, there's his bio. Of course, down here at the bottom, MattelCollector.com, where collectors are king and collect them all. And then, of course, top of the packaging, you do have the Masters Universe Classics logo up there, along with some of the other figures who are available in the line. Or were available, let's put it that way. You have Buzz Off, Roboto, Battle Armor He-Man, of course Rio Blast, the figure we have here in package. You've got Mechanic, and you've got Ram Man. So yeah, that's Rio Blast in packaging. Without any further ado, let's bust Rio out of his plastic prison and see just exactly what he's working with. Alright, everybody, we have Rio Blast here out of his packaging, and this could have been one of the best figures in the line. It's not a bad figure. It's just some of the design choices and the execution on this figure just I'm kind of puzzled by what they were thinking. It's not a bad figure. It's really not. You're going to have some people who review this and they're just going to rip it to shreds and say Mattel dropped the ball. And it just depends on your level of I guess, venom towards Mattel of how you're going to take this figure. I don't have his accessories kind of out in front right now that he comes packaged with, because let's face it, his accessories are just as much part of the figure as they are accessories. And I'm going to show those to you here in just a little bit, but I just want to focus on the figure right now. The first thing I want to talk about with this figure is the sculpt of the foot. If you look at the sculpt of the foot, you've got a flat area here, and then this kind of boot area. Because of that sculpt, and it's a nice sculpt. The sculpt looks very good. Because of that sculpt, this figure is extremely hard to stand. And once you get him standing, see, he's standing now, but it makes me nervous to just even barely touch him. It's just a really hard figure to get to stand for any amount of time without having to worry about him falling over. I mean, if you don't find that sweet spot like this, I mean, I just barely push him back a little, and I mean, that's it. He's not going to stand. He's just not going to. You have to find that perfect spot for him to stand. And that's kind of disappointing. But it's, like I said, it's not impossible to do. He does have the peg holes in the bottom of his feet at least, so if you want to put him on a stand of some kind to keep him upright, it'll work. Taking a look at that head sculpt, a lot of people really weren't fans of it at first whenever it was revealed, because, you know, that original Rio Blast head sculpt, he kind of had that flat, slick to the side hairdo that wasn't real windswept, but I gotta tell you that I really like the head sculpt. You know, you see it kind of swoops over his eye there, but I mean, he just looks like a cowboy. I mean, this is Sam Elliott with a long flowing head of hair and about 16 years of steroid use. He looks like a cowboy. And he is a space cowboy, you know, so what do you expect? He's got this nice brown hair, sculpted beautifully as the horsemen always do. It's painted in a brown, but then there's kind of like almost a lighter brown dry brushing on top of it to kind of, it's not really a two-tone hair color. I don't know if it's really coming across on camera. You can kind of see it much better in person, but it's just an absolutely fantastic head sculpt, paint job. You can see the sculpt on the mustache there is really nice as well, with the individual strands of hair sculpted in there. He looks like a cowboy. I have no issue with this head sculpt. Actually, I think it's one of the better head sculpts in the line. The old head sculpt with the hair was just so blah. I think this is such a good update of it. I much prefer this to the original head sculpt of the figure. Moving down to his armor, it's painted in this really nice bright blue, but there are some metallic blue highlights in it. Namely, I might be able to see him here in these little areas to either side of his collar and just underneath his chin there. You got metallic blue highlights there. The buttons here on the front of the vest are in metallic blue. This little piece where the rope comes out of is in metallic blue. And then moving around to the back, this whole area where his backpack plugs into, and these pieces up here in a metallic blue. Of course, that rope I talked about, it comes out here. It's got some silver painted detail here, and it comes, you know, kind of comes down and around underneath the arm, moves around to the back, and then attaches in back here. That rope's sculpted quite nicely. You can see the sculpting detail on that rope, and it's really nice. It's painted in a brown paint. The vest also has this nice line detail that comes down here and around to the front and kind of runs along the edges there. Really nice sculpt. Also some metallic blue right under here. And then he's got this sculpted hose that comes around right here, and it plugs into this slot right here. He's got his badge. It's painted in metallic gray, metallic silver with the red overlay on top of it. So that's really cool. That is part of the sculpt. It's raised out of the sculpt. It's not just flat on there. It's actually raised. You can see how there's some depth to it right there. Really, really nice. I don't know if you guys can see this on the armor. See that very, very slight indication of the number 2 right there? I find that interesting because I have 2 subs. The other figure that I got of Rio Blast goes to my son. My son gets 1 set, I get 1 set. The armor there had a number 3. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the significance of that might be. All I know is this has the number 2 and the one that he got has the number 3. Don't know what the significance of that is. Or if there is one. But just interesting to note. Of course, this does fold over. Part of Rio Blast, what makes him Rio Blast, which you'll see later. There will be a couple guns here. But just looking at the sculpting detail behind that chest flap, it's really, really nice. It's painted in a nice silver paint, but just that technological sculpting detail back there is just fantastic. It looks so good. It becomes obvious, of course, that Rio Blast is apparently a cyborg. But it just, oh gosh, it looks so good. And it was so well executed. And then taking a look down there at the flap, right here, there's more sculpted detail of that kind of technological call outs right there, to where you can see in relief that this is supposed to fit over the top of these things. You've got these 3 lines here that correspond with these 3 lines here. You've got this area that corresponds with this area. So really, really nice for that part. Taking a look at his arms, he's got the traditional Masters Universe Classics arms to the shoulder and the bicep, but he's got a new sculpt. This is a new sculpt for Rio Blast on the glove area. It's painted in a brown, kind of a flat brown, but then there's some metallic brown paint, almost copper colored paint across these rivets on his gloves, and he's got this silver painted detail here on the glove, and then that little metallic paint detail on top of it with that brown across the knuckles right there. This area right here that has something that'll plug into it. Taking a look at the bottom of the arm, he's got some more of that copper almost colored paint right here, and just a very nicely sculpted action figure. His hands are sculpted in an untraditional way, of course, and you'll see why once I display him. I'll show you how all of his accessories fit in. But the 2 hands are identical. They both are sculpted in the same manner with that same kind of pose and that same detail on them. But just the sculpt on here is really, really fantastic. This is probably one of the better sculpted figures in the line. It's just as far as pure sculpting goes. It's just really, really nice. A lot of uniqueness to it too. This is a totally unique piece that probably no one will use other than Rio Blast, unless they come up with a reason to use it for some other prototype characters or something. And then, of course, taking a look at his legs, one thing that kind of separates Rio Blast from the rest of the Masters universe is he's wearing pants. Thanks for that, Rio Blast. But you see here the sculpt of his pants. He's got like this sculpted detail here. I guess this is where you call his pee-pee flap. If Rio Blast had to take a leak, he just pop these 2 little buttons open and hang his little fandangler out and take a leak if he's got to. Anyway, that's probably way too much information. But the buttons on the flapper are painted in a gold metallic paint. The pants themselves are painted in this tan color, all the way down to where, everywhere you can see the pants, it's that tan colored paint, even along here onto the back. Of course, his belt, I didn't mention his belt yet. His belt is it's got a metallic silver belt buckle, and then it's got all these like little bullet, they're really big bullets. You can take a look at them. They'd be really, really large, like almost shotgun shells. But he's, like those Old West guys would have. He's got that kind of sculpted detail to his belt going all the way around. And then when you get to the back of his belt, he's got, looks like a whip rolled up on the back of his belt and a little pouch. That pouch is painted in green. The whip's painted in black. They are part of the sculpt. They're non-removable. But just really nice touches. They do that sometimes. They did that with Fisto too on his belt. And I thought that was really, really cool. Whenever they can add little character touches like that to the sculpt. Just continuing to take a look at his legs. Coming down here to the bottom. He's got these space chaps sort of that are sculpted into the back of his boots. You can see his spurs are painted in a metallic silver color. He's got some metallic silver details painted into the side of his space chaps right there. And the way these spurs are sculpted, they don't move, but it's almost as if they could you know, be articulated back up into these little slots on the back of his legs. If this character were a real person or anything like that, you know, they would just pop back up into those little holes. But just really nice sculpting detail along the back right here on these chaps. You know, taking a look back at the front detail of them, really, really nice. He's got some painted detail, some gold painted detail here on these parts, and just more of that great sculpting detail. The Four Horsemen just bring out so much more of the sculpt on these classics figures than they ever have before. And then of course these chaps they're made to look kind of, you know, weathered here around the edges, like they're weathered, and then they've got the little tassels here hanging off the edges, but really nice. Then you get down to those boots. We already talked about the boots, and sculpted quite nice, a really unique sculpt, but it just makes it really hard for this figure to stand. Now let's talk about some of the issues that people have had, and honestly, normally, a lot of times I just think people are really, really nitpicky, and they should just get over it. There are some real legitimate gripes about this figure. The first and most glaring one to me being this right here. The way his vintage action feature was recreated was this thing folds down and he's got a little gun that plugs in to that spot right there. As you remember on the old one, this was recessed and the gun just fit up in there, and you would flip it down and the gun was already there. To hold that gun in place, they have this little peg hole right here. The only thing they would have had to have done to fix that is right in here where it fits into his chest. Just mold out an area for that to fit in right there. But then you kind of get into the idea of, well, is it worth breaking up the sculpt of that right there? And I think what they did, they made this figure under the assumption that most people are going to pose him with all of his guns out anyway, so it's not going to matter. But there might be some people who just want to pose him like this, and if they do, there is no way to get this chest flap to plug in to his chest without it hanging open about that far the whole time. Now from the front, from a distance, it's not that noticeable. It really isn't. It's really not that noticeable. But whenever you get up close, man, that just sticks out like a sore thumb. And once again, it's a really good figure, don't get me wrong. I don't want to make it sound like I don't enjoy this figure, because I do. He's one of my favorite vintage characters, and his translation into classics was done very well in my opinion. I'm really, really happy with it. But this could have been one of the great figures of the line. This could have been like the one of those, you know, those Fisto type characters, or Ram Man type characters. Just that their execution was done so well that just everybody loved it. But unfortunately, because of things like that, this has become a very polarizing figure for a lot of people. Another issue, if you see right here, this little silver hose comes down, and there's a little peg hole there that you can see there on camera. It's supposed to plug in to that hole right there in the armor. Right there. And it does. It plugs in. You can put it in there. But you can see it's already working itself back out. Already. Now, you could super glue that in place. Maybe. But if you do that, you're going to affect the ability for this to hinge open for his action feature, I guess you would call it. And whenever you lower it down, I mean, it's you move it and it pops out. It's just ridiculous. I'm thinking maybe if I put some super glue, maybe instead of putting it right there, maybe just kind of on his back right there, just kind of to hold it in place. Maybe that might work, but honestly, that bothers me more than the chest flap. It really, really does, because whenever it's popped out and it's not in there, it's really, really obvious. And I'm sure there's going to be some people who come out with some fixes for this chest flap too. I mean, honestly, if you just kind of even Dremel out right there, you could put it. But to me, it's not worth damaging the armor to do that. And that brings me to another issue: this armor. I'm gonna go ahead and raise up his arms and let you take a look at it right here. This armor is obviously asymmetrical. It sticks out way further underneath here than it does here, and I have no idea why. That may not bother a lot of people, and actually whenever you have the figure posed with his arm down, it's barely even noticeable. You can barely even see it. But just the fact that it's there, and I know it's there, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, I have no idea why this side of the armor is sculpted so thin, and this side had to be so thick across that part right there. I just don't understand that. It makes no sense to me at all. And looking at it from the back, it's not as obvious there, but my goodness, whenever you look at it from the front, it's obvious that that armor is not symmetrical. And this is not just on my figure. The other figure that I had, maybe it's only those two or a small percentage of them. The other figure that I had that I passed on to my son, it was the same thing. This is actually the better of the two armors. Actually, what I did with this figure is, this is the armor that came on the other figure. This is kind of sort of my ultimate Fisto, because I've kind of pieced together the best parts of both packaging from him. But and in the whole getting him to stand thing just bothers me. He's gonna stand there. I think I'm gonna go ahead and let him stand there for a second. But like I said, looking at him from this angle, you can't even tell. You can't tell the armor's asymmetrical. You can't tell the armor's messed up. You can't tell that chest flap's hanging open agape in a large way. But the figure does have some issues. And it's unfortunate because it's issues that for a lot of people are making this figure a failed figure. It doesn't do that for me. I really like the figure. I really, really do. I mean, an action figure would have to be horrible. I'm kind of like that with movies. I hear a lot of people talk about a lot of movies that they hate that I like, and I'm like, well, I really like that movie. The movie has to be really, really bad, like Halle Berry Catwoman bad for me not to like it. And action figures much the same way. So this is not a bad figure, but it does have a few issues. Hopefully, you know, anything I said will kind of help you work through if you want to brave those issues or not. As I said, he is still available on MattyCollector.com. You can go there today and purchase him. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video now, and whenever you get back, not Fisto, I wanted to call him Fisto for some reason, Rio Blast will be decked out with his guns, and I will show you how all of that works. Whoa, don't shoot, dude. Just kidding. We got Fisto here. God, why do I keep calling this guy Fisto? Rio Blast. I've got Rio Blast here decked out with all of his accessories, with all of his guns. And honestly, this is probably the way that you should display. I'm not going to tell anyone how to display their figures. This is preferable to me. He looks awesome whenever he's fully assembled and totally displayed with all of his guns out, guns blazing. If you're a big fan of that head sculpt, it's really easy to display him with the head sculpt showing. I'll show you how to do that, but just taking a look at all of these little details on him here with the guns. He's got that visor over his eyes. That's another issue people had. You can see if you have him straight on, the visor's not really covering his eyes. That's not that big of a deal to me, though. I mean, it's not. Who cares? To me, that's one of those nitpicks that's just crazy. But you can see now all the sculpting detail on this. It's just molded in gray plastic except for the hoses. The hoses here that come out from the bottom of the backpack are painted in a metallic silver, as are the guns, but that backpack is all sculpted in that flat gray. But it does have some paint detail. It does have some metallic paint detail here along the back. You know, these studs here, these little circular areas. But just a fantastic job on the sculpting detail. You can see all the tech details all across these guns, all across the back of them, and it just looks really nice. It's really, really cool. And it operates much in the same way that the vintage figure did. You just fold this up and push it down. It's kind of fiddly to keep it on his back. It's not too bad, but it does kind of tend to want to come off with any kind of pressure. And of course you can display him like this without his backpack on if you want to, which probably would be what I do, just because I like that head sculpt so much. But anyway, coming down here to his chest, you see the gun down there on that chest piece. It's painted in this sort of, not really metallic red, but it's like a shinier, it's almost like there's glitter in it. That's kind of what it looks like a glittery red paint. And of course the way that this goes, it just like that I showed you earlier, you've got your peg hole there. Bottom of the gun you got your peg, and it just plugs right in there. Just like so. Fits real nice and snug. It's not going to fall off or anything like that. Really, 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 really cool. But anyway, I'll go ahead and I'll be taking him apart as I go through this. That way I can go over articulation. I don't want to break anything. Of course, and then his arms, when it comes to his arms, he's got these two hoses coming out the bottom of his backpack that go around and they plug into either arm on the outside, either there and then right here. Plugs into there. Looks really, really cool. And then these guns, you see that hole here, there's a hole here, they just plug in there. And that was another issue that a lot of people had, that those guns plugged in there and didn't attach to his hand somehow, because you can't really rotate that hand in any way other than it's just going to look like he's holding his guns like this. In other words, you're not going to be able to get him holding the guns in like a, go ahead and pull that out and show you how it plugs in at the same time. You won't be able to get him holding his guns, you know, kind of with the sideways, or you know, he won't be able to pose holding his gun that way. It's always going to be like this, because this pegs, focus, this pegs in right there, and you just push it in, fits in place, and that's how he has to hold his gun. But that's cool. It's not that big of a deal to me, not at all. Other gun plugs in the exact same way. Unplug these and let you get a closer look at the detail on them. Just again, really nice sculpting detail on them. And these are painted in that metallic silver. Really, really cool though. And then these hoses, it's really easy to do. It just pops right out and then just pushes right back in there. Very easy. Very, very easy. Both sides. Not hard to do. And then the backpack. Of course, you got 3 holes here, 3 holes here. Really simple. Plugs in, fits nicely, fits nice and snug. And then, of course, if you want to put them over his head, just like I showed you earlier, boop, over the top. Boom, there you go. And then taking it off, back over the top and back down. Very simple. Very, very simple execution. And then you have his knee guns. Once again, the original figure, this area was recessed with a huge hole, and you'd fold these up and it would just sit in there. But on this figure, they don't break up the sculpt, which I like. So the way they go about doing this is these guns just, there's this big peg down in there. They have these big peg holes down here. And you just push them on down in there and they plug in. Very easy. Very nice. Easy to unplug, move out the way, and then these just fold back up there. As you can see, they don't, like this, the peg hole right down in there. See if I can get the light to shine on that. It hits the leg, so it doesn't. There's no peg hole to hold them safely, securely in there. But and then the way these work, they just the articulation that's built into the figure for the knee has a hole here and here that would already be there, and these just have those big peg holes. They just peg in right there, hold in place quite nicely. And of course, if you don't like the way they stick out from his legs right there, you're more than welcome to just take those bad boys off and set them to the side. And he looks fine like this too, in my opinion. He actually really looks really good like that. Of course, the armor is removable. If you want to remove the armor, you just pop off the head, come around here to the back, unplug that from there like so, unplug that from there like so. Armor slips right off. He's got the standard Masters of the Universe Classics buck underneath with the muscle detail all sculpted in, just painted in a blue color. So you want to have Fisto rolling around looking like that. I mean, it just looks like he's got a blue undershirt on. It's not that bad. Not that bad at all. If you want to display him that way, if you so care to. But the armor is very easy to put back on. Just slips back over. Just like that standard Masters of the Universe Classics armor that we've seen before. You know, you have to slide your tabs in correctly. Well, I say it's easy. Apparently it's not as easy as I'm making it sound. But, oh, come on now. It's ridiculous. You can do this. It can be done. Yeah, there we go. And then this side, much the same way. Just slides back in, push that peg back through, and you're done. And then, of course, you take Fisto, get his old head back over there. Give it a pop, pop it back on. God, why do I keep calling him Fisto? Your name is Rio Blast. Your name's not Fisto. I promise. Gosh, I cannot get over that. Going over articulation right quick. Head goes up and down quite a bit. A little bit of side to side. Get that rocking action on that ball joint. It does go all the way around. Going all the way around is a little bit hampered though, because you see that piece of his armor, his chin, does hit that piece right there. So you probably can force it around, but why would you want to force it? You don't need to do that, unless he's possessed. It says it's not going all the way around anyway. Arms do go all the way around. Go about that high, then back down about that far. He does have a swivel at the bicep that goes 360 degrees. Single point elbow. Going to get about that much out of it. His wrists do rotate 360 degrees. He does have that ab crunch. It's not hindered or stopped by the armor almost at all. Does have a waist twist. Waist goes all the way around. Legs go out about that far and back in. They go back about that far before that part of the sculpt, you know, the where the loincloth would be. This part of his jeans hits it about that far. He will go about that far forward. So you can get him in a seating pose. You'll be able to sit him in a vehicle. As I showed you before, legs go that far. Definitely will be able to get him on a horse if they ever put out horses. I don't know. For a figure like him, you don't want to put him on Swiftwind looking like that, because it'll just look weird with all that color. Legs go all the way around right there. The thigh. Single point knee. Get about that much out of it. Then back down. No boot cut articulation, of course. He does have ankle articulation. Go about that far up. That far back. And just a very slight amount of pivot. So, yeah. This is Rio Blast, not Fisto, Rio Blast. I'm going to have to go back and count how many times I called him Fisto in this video. See there, see what I'm talking about those boots? It's you really have to work really hard to find that sweet spot to get him to stand with those boots. Ugh, it's so annoying. That's the worst part of the figure, honestly. I hate that more than I hate this chest flap staying open. I really, really do. But anyway, guys, this is my review. This has been my review of Masters of the Universe Classics Rio Blast. As always, comment, rate, like, and subscribe. And this has been Jackhammer 2711, and I will catch you on the flip side.